deathless titans placed upon the face of the earth 3 generations of men, the first of them being men of gold. Becoming too close to gods themselves, Cronus ended their time on earth with an eternal sleep. A second generation came to be, the men of silver. Unwilling to serve the titans and make sacrifices upon the holy altars, as all men shall do, they were condemned to dwell under the earth for all eternity. Finally, a third generation, the men of bronze, a brazen race, sprung from the ash tree. Terrible and strong are they. Join me as I tell you the tales of the men of bronze. This is Dragon's Blood, Odyssey to Dionysodoros, Episode 4. Vague memories came back to Gamden as he slowly opened his eyes. Drinking heavily was the first one to emerge, then the wench half undressed on his lap. Finally, Jards was carrying him like a rag doll in his massive arms. To where? The room was unfamiliar but felt safe, and he was clothed as well. An audible sigh of relief came out of Gamden as he closed his hand on the pouch of gold and diamonds around his neck. Stumbling through the darkness, he found a door and opened it to reveal a room well lit by candles from a chandelier. Clanai were against all 4 walls. The largest one held Jards sitting upright, sleeping naked, women on either side of him. The other Clanai contained Jards' bodyguards, all sleeping except for one, who was nursing a mug of ale and talking to a prostitute. Gamden made his way over and asked the bodyguard, "How long was I out for?" "Not sure," answered the bodyguard. "I got here when the water clock was refilled, and it's empty now, so it should be sunrise soon." "Perfect," sighed Gamden. "I still have time to make it to the rendezvous point to meet the smugglers." He looked around quickly for paper and something to write with. By the door he found a desk with a quill pen, jotted down a quick note, and handed it to the bodyguard. "Make sure Jards gets this, please. I owe him one." "I can do that for you." "Must be a good friend of Jards. Never seen him take care of a person like he did you." "What do you mean?" asked Gamden. "Jards gave us all strict instructions to make sure nothing happened to you." "Wow. Must have really impressed him by making enemies with the captain of the guard," Gamden said to himself. Then he thanked the bodyguard again and hightailed it for the street. Running through the streets of Nebeta in the early dawn light, Gamden had to fight his way through the vendors setting up shop. Carts blocked his progress at every turn. He had to meet the smugglers this morning, or he would lose his chance to get into the city. Even worse, Jards wouldn't give him another chance like this, ever again. Finally, he reached the stables where he had to ask for Nurgle. Jards said to mention his name and safe passage would be granted. Once inside the stables, he found a boy and asked him where to find Nurgle. "You can find him over there." The boy pointed to an old man standing near a horse-drawn cart being filled with sacks of grain. Gamden thanked the boy and ran off to find his contact. Completely out of breath, Gamden said to the old man, "Are you Nurgle?" "Aye, that I am. What can I do for you?" "Jards told me to meet you here to get me into the city without any trouble from the guard." "Then you must be Gamden." "Yeah. How did you know?" asked Gamden with a puzzled look on his face. "He sent one of his men to see me last night. Interrupted me supper. Pissed about that I was. Told me to expect a young lad named Gamden in the morning, and to get him into the city, nice and quiet like." The last sack of grain was loaded into the cart. "We're ready to go, lad." Nurgle reached into his long black coat and pulled a cap from the inside pocket. "Hope you brought something to keep your head warm. Wind is strong today. Gonna be cold on the road to Khaemwaset." With years of practice, Nurgle climbed up into the driver's seat of the cart held out his hand and continued, "Take my hand, lad. No footsteps on that side of the cart. Never needed 'em. Just me every day. All day. Up and down the hill." He took his hand, climbed up the spokes of the wheel, and took the seat next to him. A snap of the reins, and the horses dug their hooves into the soil, jerking the cart forward. "You're right," said Gamden. "It's going to be a cold ride." Rummaging through his haversack, Gamden pulled out a thick scarf and wrapped it around his neck and face. With the scarf muffling his voice and the wind whipping the words right out of his mouth, Gamden shouted, "Thank you for getting me into the city." "That's all right, lad. When Jards asks you to do something for him, well, let's just say it would be a mistake to say no." "How do you know Jards?" asked Gamden. "The two of us were fighters." "You mean that you were both gladiators?" "No, lad. Jards and me fought with our fists and feet. No weapons." I never knew that Jards was a fighter. Right after he said it, Gamden thought back to last night when he was in the arena, and it all made sense. "We never fought each other, and I'm glad for that, I tell ya. Jards never lost a fight. Killed 3 men in the arena, he did. By accident. Of course. He's just too strong." "So you're doing this for Jards because you two are such good friends?" asked Gamden. "No, lad. I'm doing this because he saved me life. I was fighting earlier in the night one time, and Jards was the main attraction. The fighter I was up against somehow got a small blade into the arena. Took out me eye, he did. And Jards saw what he had done. Jumped in the ring and snapped his neck like a twig. Jards did." Nurgle turned to look at Gamden and continued, "Got me this eye, he did, to replace the one that bastard cut out of me head." He tapped it with his finger. Gamden looked closer and noticed a perfectly white quartz eyeball in the socket, with a jade iris and an obsidian pupil. He shivered with the thought of the pain Nurgle went through. For the rest of the trip along the cargo trail, Gamden listened to Nurgle talk all the way up. What was worse was that it started to get colder, and snow started blowing the further they climbed up the trail. Just before the crest of the hill, the cart came to a stop, and Nurgle said, "Now, lad, get in the back and move a few sacks of them grain. Lay down and cover yourself with them." Once Gamden was covered, the cart lurched forward. Gamden struggled to get comfortable under the sacks, then made a gap to see out of it. Nurgle whistled a traveling tune as they continued towards Khaemwaset. First, Gamden saw the small villages that surrounded the king's city, followed by the farms and the stables that fed it. Everyone is prosperous here and loyal to the king. Finally, they reached the parapet, where armed guards wrapped in heavy fur coats and hats kept watch. One of them stepped forward, faced the cart and shouted, "Stop where you are. Make yourself known." "It's me, Ygmilium. It's always me. Right on time as usual. Gotta get the grain to the miller, or he'll have a head on a pike." Yes, Nurgle, I know it's you. But if I don't follow orders, the officer on watch will have my head on a pike." The guard jerked his thumb over his shoulder at the officer, sitting near the fire, nice and warm. Nurgle and the guard laughed out loud at the joke. The same joke they laugh over, at the same time, every day. "Get going then, off to the miller. When you come back though, I'll be finished my watch, and we'll have a quick drink." The guard pulled a silver flask from his fur coat, enticing Nurgle. With a big smile on his face, Nurgle said, "Aye, that will warm me bones for the road home." With a snap of the reins, the horses snorted, and the cart heaved forward, towards the gates. Whistling away, as the cart went through the main gates into Khaemwaset, Nurgle said, "Stay in the cart, lad, till we get to the miller. There ye can be on your way. Guards don't patrol around there. Too far from the barracks." Nurgle laughed out loud while he continued, "Lazy bastards." Gamden remained warm and out of the wind under the sacks. He watched as they went through the deserted city streets. Most of the merchant shops were closed because of the cold and the snow. Gamden recognized where they were at last, and he knew that it wouldn't be long until they were at their destination. The cart came to a sudden stop outside the large stone building, and Nurgle said, "We're here, lad. You can be on your way now." Gamden crawled out from under the sacks into the cold wind and shivered. "Thanks for getting me into the city." "Delivered ye safe and sound, I did," Nurgle said, with a quick salute. "Here, take this." Gamden reached into the pouch around his neck, pulled out a small diamond and pressed it into Nurgle's palm. "That's far too much, lad. I can't take this. A token of my appreciation, and a down payment for the future. Never know when I'll need a friend in the city." Gamden returned the salute, turned, and walked off down the snowy street. "Made a friend of me, you did. A friend indeed," shouted Nurgle. It was a long time ago that Gamden was last in the city, and he was sure that he knew where his mate would be. The first stop was at the Wild Hog Tavern, still the best watering hole in all of the castle walls. He had a long way to go. The miller was on the far side of the city, and the tavern was in the center. Halfway through the trek, the clouds broke, and the blowing snow stopped. The sun was warm, and he could take the scarf from around his neck and head. Gamden breathed deeply, and enjoyed the warmth of the sun's rays on his face. Scooping snow into his hand, he ate until his stomach was full. After that long ride in the back of the cart, he was thirsty. With the sun now shining, people came out of their homes and continued their day. And the closer he got to the center of the city, the more people he came across. Gamden turned the last corner, and there was the Wild Hog Tavern. The doors were never locked, and people were constantly coming and going. The roar of the party inside could be heard clear across the lane. Making his way through the crowd at the front of the building, he got in the doors, and right away, the smell of ale and the unwashed mass of people made him cringe. Every table was full, and the floor was packed with partygoers. After what seemed forever, and several pickpocket attempts, Gamden made it to the bar. It was a long time since he'd been in the tavern, and he didn't recognize anybody. On a hunch, he went to the far end of the bar, where the headmistress kept a seat for business. Kadira was there, as always, surrounded by her girls, and enticing men and the odd woman with ease. Gamden walked up to her. She recognized him and said, "Hello, handsome. Haven't seen you in these parts for quite some time." When she spoke, she smiled, and her face lit up like a diamond in the sun. She was older than Gamden, but still the most beautiful woman in all the three kingdoms. Her perfect brown eyes drew men to her like a thief to gold. Long black hair in ringlets draped over one shoulder. Her gown pushed up her breasts perfectly. Blushing, Gamden took her hand in his and said, "Kadira, how do you become more beautiful every time I see you?" He flashed her a big smile. Kadira gave him a sideways glance and replied, "You're so full of crap, but I appreciate the compliment." She got up and held out her arms for a hug. Taking him into her arms, she pushed his head deep between her bosoms. "You're so damn handsome." Lifting his head from between her bust, she kissed him passionately on the lips, licking her lips as she drew away. She said in the most alluring voice, "If you keep up this sweet talk, I might have to take you to my chamber. My treat." Cupping his genitals in her hand, she felt his erection and continued, "You know you want me." His eyes were still closed from the kiss. "Kadira, you tempt me like no other woman can, but I'm here on business." She punched him in the arm, breaking him from the trance. Sitting down, a look of complete rejection came over her face. Immediately, Gamden got down on his knees before her and begged, "Please, let me make it up to you." He pulled out a gold coin from his pouch and pressed it to his lips. Here, take this. He gently placed the coin in her palm. Let me buy your drinks for the rest of the night. Kadir saw the 3 crowns on the coin, and a gasp escaped her lips. The king's gold, she whispered. You are here on business. She smiled again and continued, I can't be mad at you. She kissed him on the cheek. At least, have a glass of wine before you leave me heartbroken. 1 glass of wine turned into 3. Entranced, Gamden just stared into her eyes and listened to her talk. Time had no meaning when in her presence, and Gamden was in danger of being a slave to her love. 3 men at the table next to them began fighting and tumbled over toward Gamden, knocking him out of his chair. The trance broken, he came back to his senses. 2 large bodyguards rushed in and scooped up the drunks, giving them a good beating as they threw them out the front door. Gamden finally remembered why he had come to see Kadir and asked her, Have you seen Sunesret? Where can I find him? What do you want with that brute? He's nothing but trouble. Kadir chided him and wagged her finger in his direction. She stopped mid-sentence, composed herself, and then said, You can find him sitting in the back, passed out as usual, from too much wine and ale. She got up, stepped toward Gamden, stroked his cheek lovingly, and continued, Be careful when you're around him. Don't worry about me. I always come out looking pretty. Gamden flashed her a big smile, turned and walked away quickly. Navigating through the crowd to the back of the tavern, he found Sunesret without a problem. Following the loud snoring from the corner, he found him sleeping in his chair. Gamden shouted and shook Sunesret several times, but he wouldn't wake up. Looking around, he saw a pitcher full of water on the table next to him. Gamden threw the water in his face. Coughing and sputtering, Sunesret bolted out of his seat and roared at the top of his lungs. What'd you do that for? I was grabbing a quick snooze before the party starts again. It took a second, but Sunesret finally recognized him. Gamden! Aren't you a sight for sore eyes? He bent down and scooped him up in his massive arms. Whoosh went the air from his lungs as he squeezed in a crushing bear hug. Put me down! Put me down! You big bastard! Squeaked Gamden. Sorry, I forget my own strength. Sunesret dropped him to the floor. Good to see you. It has been a long time since you were in Khaemwaset. Wait, why are you here in the city again? How did you get past the gate watch? You were run out of the city by the king's guard, no less. No easy task getting back in the city, I bet. That was great. Every thief knew your name. I'm so excited to see you, I just can't shut up. First off, it's good to see you too. And yes, I am taking a big risk coming back here, but it's worth it. Gamden took a quick look around to make sure that no one could overhear what he was going to say, especially one of the king's stool pigeons. I'm going to make you rich, old friend. Rich enough to drown in wine and women. I like what you're saying so far, Gamden, he said with a grin from ear to ear. You know me too well, but I also know that something that sounds this good is never that easy, old friend. You're right, Sunesret. It isn't going to be that easy. I'm going to Azerta. Sunesret was speechless for a change. If you come with me, you can line your pockets with 300 gold coins and 5 perfect diamonds. Sunesret found his voice. I'm interested again. But that is a long trip and very, very dangerous. Okay. 500 gold and 5 diamonds. That's better. I got lots of people that are wanting money out of me. If I don't die on the way there or back, I better come home with more than enough. Good, said Gamden. Now that is settled, where is Kensu? We're going to need a skilled archer on the road. Kensu went to Khaemwaset Monastery to become a priest. Haven't seen him in at least a year now. Seriously, said Gamden, with a confused look on his face. I never would have figured Kensu for a religious person. He loved to drink, swear and steal, even more than you. They both laughed about that. Drying the tears of laughter from his eyes, Gamden continued, Khaemwaset Monastery is too far away for us to remain on schedule. I guess it's just us then. You and me, Gamden, all the way. No one can stop us. Sunesret pounded his fist against the thick black leather armor, then shouted, Unstoppable. Sunesret stood up again, and when he did, he was almost double Gamden's height. Dark skin with close-cropped dark hair and beard, he was the perfect specimen of a southern warrior. Big dark eyes gave a look of inner strength and courage when he was set on a goal. Several scars and a flattened nose gave testament to a hard life on the streets. Let's drink to our new partnership. I'm a little short on coin though. You'll have to buy. Sunesret pushed him towards the bar and was quick on his heels. I don't know if I should have drinks tonight. I was with Jards last night, and I can't remember too much. You were with Jards? Lucky swine, shouted Sunesret with a big smile. Every time I do a job for him, I get so drunk at his place. But he always makes me buy my own drinks. The bartender walked up and asked, What you drinking? 3 flagons of your best wine, shouted Sunesret. What do you want to drink, Gamden? Gamden looked up at Sunesret, then over to the bartender and said, Get this big bastard his flagons, but make it cheap wine. Ah, said Sunesret through a frown. I'll have one for myself. Attaboy, shouted Sunesret and smacked him on the back. Get right back into the bottle, I say. Look for episode 5 of Dragon's Blood, Odyssey to Dionysodoros, on YouTube.